What we are learning right now is who Donald Trump always has been. Lock him up. Check it out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel.
Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. On the line with us is a guy who knows Donald Trump very well. He wrote Art of the Deal as the ghostwriter for Donald Trump, Tony Schwartz. He's also the author of a new Audible audiobook, Dealing with the Devil, My Mother, Trump, and Me. His website, Tony Schwartz, SCHWARTZ.com. That's also his Twitter handle, Tony Schwartz. Tony, welcome back to the program. It's been a while since we talked. I'm curious your take on the, if we could start at the beginning, kind of the national security implications of discovering that Donald Trump is over $400 million in debt. He's going to have to start paying it off fairly soon, and he may owe the IRS another $100 million.
Well, I think this is just one more piece of evidence for the absence of character that defines Trump and makes him such a dangerous president. He was already incredibly dangerous. Relative to national security, not least because the people he embraces are almost exclusively autocratic leaders, and the ones he disdains are the democratic leaders of the world and are our allies for many years. Now you add to this the fact that he could be beholden to foreign powers, and that simply makes it worse. I think, in addition, what the New York Times revelations about his taxes make clear is that whatever it turns out the legality, technical legality or the illegality of his massive avoidance of tax is, there's no question that this guy has been doing something that no one could consider ethical or reasonable for someone of his wealth to do.
Which is?
To avoid paying taxes on hundreds of millions of dollars of income and take deductions like $70,000 for haircuts, which, can you imagine any person thinking that way?
Right, and apparently he's using some of the same techniques that his father used to shovel money to him without, to get around the estate tax, to shovel money to Ivanka. But which is, kind of mind-boggling. But the thing that really strikes me is that it seems like Donald Trump has repeated. We're in the second cycle of kind of the same game. That when he was a young man, he was supposed to get a certain amount of money from his dad. Let's say $100 million. He ended up getting $400 million from his dad. Yeah. At the expense of his older brother and his other siblings and their families. And after cutting off threatening to cut off health insurance to a nephew that had cystic fibrosis or something, a badly disabled child. So anyhow, he lays his hands on $400 million back in the day. That would be like $1 billion in today's money. And then he just spends it like a drunken sailor. He buys an airline, he buys hotels, he buys casinos, he builds casinos, he buys a steak company, he buys a vodka company, he buys a winery, he buys, he just goes on a buying, the guy seems to be running like a 10-year-old, right? I want. And then he runs them so badly, they all run into the ground. He declares bankruptcy 5 or 6 times. He's flat out of cash. He's maybe even looking at homelessness. And NBC gives him a lifeline, the Apprentice show. He makes another $400 million off the Apprentice show, and what does he do with that money? He buys golf courses all around the world, and they are going broke too. And so now he's like desperate for cash, just like he was back then, but NBC isn't going to bail him out. How does he get bailed out if it's not by foreign oligarchs like bailed out Jared Kushner?
Yeah, a perfectly reasonable question. He has always gone to whoever is willing to do business with him, and obviously that's a massively sunken group. No legitimate banks anymore will do business with him. So yes, that's all the case.
So when you were working with Donald Trump, did you have any sense of how mobbed up he was, or would you even use that as a phrase to describe him?
I'm not sure in 1987 that I had a window into him deeply enough to have said mobbed up or to have said that what he's running is an organized crime syndicate, which I certainly would say today. But what I did know is that he was a man of very, very limited, what eventually I realized was no conscience and no capacity for empathy, for care. And those are two extraordinary qualities for a human being to lack. When you don't have conscience and you don't have empathy, all you're left with is you. And it's either dominate or be dominated. And that's been Donald Trump's story all his life.
Yeah. We're talking with Tony Schwartz, Trump's ghostwriter for Art of the Deal. Tony, you've got a new book out, Dealing with the Devil, My Mother, Trump, and Me. It's an Audible audio book that you can find online. Tell us about it.
Well, I really, when I finished working with Trump and I felt very actually dispirited and uncertain what to do with my life, I really went on a search for what I guess I would call meaning. I wanted to find some alternative to the life he in such an exaggerated way represented, the life of money, power, fame, doing whatever you have to do to get ahead. And, I myself had been on some of that same journey, I think probably in a slightly more honorable way, but the idea that I could define who I was by how much I accomplished was very much in my head. And the reason was that, like Trump, or I should say we both were wounded in terms of our upbringing in similar ways. He had a really vicious, aggressive, overwhelming father and a neglectful mother. I had a really tough, difficult, unforgiving mother and a neglectful father, and both of us were impelled to look outward to find approval, love, acceptance that wasn't available at home. And that's something that, to a greater or lesser degree, almost every human being has to contend with and struggle with. And I found and wanted to write about that the more I was willing to face the truth, the more I was willing to see, even if it felt incredibly uncomfortable, the freer I became.
So, wow. I mean, there have been books written, about how. There have been entire books written about how people whose parents die before they become teenagers, one of their parents die before they become teenagers, tend to be massive overachievers in the world, and it's like they're trying to prove something to the dead parent. Is the kind of pops? Yeah.
Look. I'm sorry, but
go ahead, Tony.
The reality is that we have shunned as a society, as a culture, attention to the inner life, to what people feel, to their beliefs and their biases and their fears, all the stuff that is uncomfortable to contend with and to reckon with. But the problem is that if you are someone who has some experience of difficulty in growing up, and you are looking for a way to prove yourself, you will end up defending and trying to announce your value to the world with a lot of energy, which will be at the expense of really being able to create value in the world or to feel it, in fact, yourself. That's Trump's issue. That's the heart of, you don't have to feel compassion for him, but, for people in that circumstance, they are constantly fighting a deficit.